Oh, yes, thank you, Heavenly Father, for this time you've given to us. I do give you praise, Lord. Pray that you'll be with us as we go into your word. Speak to us. We do pray that your word will come alive, Lord, but really do speak to us and show us how we can really be ambassadors of you, do the right thing, Lord, and speak up and say the right thing at the right time. Be with us, Lord. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Bless you, Jesus. We saw that Samson was a reflection of his time. His character, attitudes, beliefs were born out of the environment in which he grew up. That environment was summed up in Judges 17:6, where it says, everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And Micah, whom we saw last time, was an example of everything or everyone doing what was right in his own eyes. He being guilty of idolatry, stealing, covetousness, dishonoring parents, and probably a lot more of the 10 Commandments. In Judges 18, beginning at verse 1, it says, in those days Israel had no king. And in those days the tribe of the Danites was seeking a place of their own where they might settle, because they had not yet come into an inheritance among the tribes of Israel. In those days, meaning the days of the judges, between the death of Joshua and Samson, in those days. And we're not quite sure where in that timeline this occurred, but after Joshua, the death of Joshua, and before Samson. Joshua had given the Danites an inheritance, like he did for the other tribes. But part of the Danite tribe, only a part, could not dominate the terrain and was forced to retreat into the hill country. They weren't strong enough to take over the more fertile, prosperous valley. But over time, some of the Danites living in a densely populated community in the hills, they wanted to spread out. And so they sent out 5 warriors from what would later become Samson's hometown to spy out the land, to see where they could settle. So in their search, as they passed through the tribe of Ephraim, seeking their own space, the spies came upon Micah's housing complex. It was really a gated community, dotted with multiple homes, having its own illicit chapel with a private priest. And when the spies saw the priest, they asked him, who brought you here? Because he should be in Shiloh, practicing there. What are you doing in this place? Why are you here? He told them what Micah had done for him and said, he's hired me, and I am his priest. Then they said to him, please inquire of God to learn whether our journey will be successful. The priest answered them, go in peace. Your journey has the Lord's approval. That was a quick response. But then again, this is a priest for hire, and we don't know if he was really prophesying at all. And if what he said turned out to be true, we wouldn't know if he was telling the truth or if he just got lucky and got it right. So he comes across as being a private priest who will tell you whatever you want to hear. And the spies come across as not really wanting to know the truth. They just want to have their hopes validated. So in verse 7, it says, so the 5 men left and came to Laish, where they saw that the people were living in safety, like the Sidonians. unsuspecting and secure. And since their land lacked nothing, they were prosperous. When they returned to Zorah and Eshtaol, their brothers asked them, "How did you find things?" And they answered, "Come on, let's attack them. We've seen that the land is very good. Don't hesitate to go there and take it over. When you get there, you'll find an unsuspecting people and a spacious land that God has put into your hands, a land that lacks nothing whatever." This just doesn't smell right. They're going to wipe out a defenseless people who don't have a care in the world. And they're going to rely on the word of a priest for hire, performing ceremonies in an unauthorized place of worship owned by a thief who stole from his own mother and brings his own son into an unholy enterprise. They're relying on this. And on the part of the spies, this is a far cry from the courage that was needed to overtake Canaan under Moses. When then they were promised a land flowing with milk and honey, but where they encountered a land also filled with giants and mighty warriors. That was the time to show courage. But the Israelites were shaking in their boots until a new generation arose, led by Joshua, who was able to lead them into the promised land. Laish, on the other hand, was defenseless. There was no need for courage. It was clear that the Danites had the forces to wipe them out. So the Danites went, not in courage. They didn't go in courage. They went in entitlement because they knew how strong they were. And in this instance, they make the case that might makes right. We're stronger, so we're going to do whatever we want. So now we see the attitude that percolated up over the years to Samson's time. Impulsive, impetuous, hot-headed, arrogant, selfish, prejudiced, irrational, lustful, and a sense of entitlement. And the Danites used the cloak of religious prophecy to justify the taking of a defenseless city. They could have negotiated the settlement with the people of Laish, but to destroy everything in sight, that was an edict that Moses and Joshua issued. It was issued because of the depravity of the Canaanite people at the time, but things have changed since then. The Israelites have changed. They don't have the moral authority anymore. They carry moral shame. And so 600 men and their households immigrated from Samson's hometown to defenseless Laish, and on the way they stopped at Micah's housing complex. And the 5 original spies went inside Micah's chapel and robbed the place, while the other armed men kept watch at the entrance to the complex. God's people stormed the chapel and robbed the place. In verse 18, when these men went into Micah's house and took the carved image and ephod and other household gods and the cast idol, the priest said to them, "What are you doing?" They answered him, "Be quiet. Don't say a word. Come with us and be our father and priest," or advisor and priest. "Isn't it better that you serve a tribe and clan in Israel as priest rather than just one man's household?" Then the priest was glad. He took the ephod, the other household gods, and the carved image and went along with the people. He took it, the priest took it. What? Now the priest is in on the steal? Where is his integrity? He has none. He's only for hire and sells his soul so that he can get more recognition by more people for more money. There is no integrity. No one wants to stand up for anything anymore. Yes, it's an honor to be recognized by important people, but not at the expense of losing your own integrity. Where are the priests and prophets who are willing to tell it like it is, regardless of the cost? Where are the John the Baptists who have no fear of speaking truth to power, even at the highest levels? But what this priest does is inexcusable. And the troubling part is that he gets away with it. And this reinforces the faulty character flaws that keep resurfacing, believing that you can and that you should do whatever you want and not suffer any consequences. These are the detrimental lessons that Samson learned. And even though the priest and the other member may get away with, or the other men may get away with armed robbery, their character flaws, they're passed down to future generations who will ultimately reap what the previous generation sowed. So on the surface, this could be okay materially, but spiritually, this stinks. So when Micah and his neighbors found out that they had been robbed, they chased after the Danites in verse 23. It says, and they shouted after them. And as they shouted after them, the Danites turned and said to Micah, what's the matter with you, that you called out your men to fight? And Micah replied, you took the gods I made, my priest, and went away. What else do I have? How can you ask, what's the matter with you? The Danites answered, don't argue with us, or some hot-tempered man will attack you, and you and your family will lose your lives. So Micah went back. He went back home to start over, while the Danites went on to Laish. And they destroyed the defenseless people, burned down the city, and rebuilt it the way they wanted it done. And on top of that, in verse 31, it says the Danites continued to use the idols Micah had made. Wow. All the time the house of God was in Shiloh. The Danites maintained their own version of Judaism, but corruption was embedded in their nature, and they didn't even realize it because they were blinded by their beliefs that might makes right. So instead of establishing a theocracy where God is their leader, they set up a cratocracy where might makes right, where whoever seizes control through violence or manipulation, through tyranny, that defines what's right and what's wrong. And someone wrote, the danger is that always managing to get your way by force, it dulls the acuity of your judgment. You never have to learn from mistakes. How assured can you be that people around you really care about you? And he goes on to say, so if everyone only does what's best for themselves, then we all mutually defeat our own best interests, and no one, no matter how powerful, gets what they recognize deep down is really best for themselves. Might cannot make right, because love cannot be commanded. For the Danites and other religious groups, these are religious people, children of God. But for them and other religious groups who think like them, this is the environment out of which their leaders come. So yes, you can blame the leaders. You can look at them and blame them for their failures. But by digging deeper, you uncover the forces that put them into power. And it's because religious people who are in error are adamant in their beliefs and think that they are in the right. So we have to ask ourselves, how can we guard against becoming like them? The answer is we have to take on not the character flaws of previous generations, but take on the character of Jesus Christ. We have to practice humility, integrity, honesty, truthfulness. But Galatians 5, the Message version, puts it quite vividly, descriptively, eloquently even. Galatians 5:19, starting there, it says, we're leading up to the fruit of the Spirit, it says, it is obvious what kind of life develops out of trying to get your own way all the time. Repetitive, loveless, cheap sex, a stinking accumulation of mental and emotional garbage, frenzied and joyless grabs for happiness, trinket gods, magic show religion, paranoid loneliness, cutthroat competition, all-consuming yet never satisfied wants, a brutal temper, an impotence to love or be loved, divided homes and divided lives, small-minded or lopsided pursuits, the vicious habit of depersonalizing everyone into a rival, uncontrolled and uncontrollable addictions, ugly parodies of community. I can go on. And then in verse 22, but what happens when we live God's way? He brings gifts into our lives, much the same way that fruit appears in an orchard. Things like affection for others, exuberance about life, serenity. We develop a willingness to stick with things, a sense of compassion in the heart, and a conviction that a basic holiness permeates things and people. We find ourselves involved in loyal commitments, not needing to force our way in life, able to marshal and direct our energies wisely. And he concludes, among those who belong to Christ, everything connected with getting our own way and mindlessly responding to what everyone else calls necessity is killed off for good, is crucified. Since this is the kind of life we've chosen, life of the Spirit, let us make sure that we do not just hold it as an idea in our heads or a sentiment in our hearts, but work out its implications in every detail of our lives. So this is how we tell the difference. This is how we distinguish ourselves, being true followers of Jesus Christ, putting all of this into practice and putting aside those characteristics of the simply religious ones doing whatever they want to do. Let this be our prayer. Let this be our prayer. Lord, I want to be a Christian. Lord, I want to be more loving. Lord, I want to be more holy. Lord, I want to be like Jesus in my heart, in my heart. Lord, I want to be like Jesus in my heart. This is our commitment.